Well, in news that surprised all of us, Variety has dropped a bombshell that a Persona live-action adaptation is currently in development, which opens up a lot of questions, from who will be working on it and what approach that they're going to take. Now, Netflix does have an interesting history of adaptations. Some have failed to capture the energy of the original and rightfully deserved the bin, while others were straight goated masterpieces.
It's just beautiful.
This is the first time they're doing a live-action adaptation of a video game. The Witcher doesn't really count in this one, as it was more of an adaptation of the books than the popular video game series. Now, the key examples we could think of here would be the live-action Death Note, which fumbled so hard, despite one of the most inspired casting choices of all time in William Dafoe as Ryuk. While on the other hand, we have goated works like One Piece, which is just solid across the board. So Western adaptations of Japanese works can go either way. Now, most TV shows live and die by their production teams, and most importantly, their showrunners. Their showrunners actively are responsible for every decision across the board. Now, the showrunner for this series is going to be a guy called Christopher Monfetti, a name that people may not be familiar with, but they were an executive producer and writer for Star Trek Picard, as well as being an executive producer on the Marvel miniseries Vision Quest, coming later this year. So, for a start, they have a good handle on nerd culture, so I can see some references getting put into the Persona series they're working on. Just as little small nods, though, I'm hoping. But that is two major franchises that have worked with them. I'd imagine we can expect them to be highly dependable, as well as used to dealing with higher level executives that want to meddle. So that's some solid points for Chris here. We also know that they're a self-described geek. They've written comic books. They've also worked as a writer for IGN and G4. Their time at IGN, though, seemed to have focused on a lot more on films, as well as nerd culture as a whole, and particularly events like Comic-Con. But their time at G4 indicated they were much more involved in the video game side of things, which means we might have an actual gamer making this series, hiring people who actually care about source material. Oh my god, this can only be good news. Unless Netflix gets some test audiences in, but, you know, let's not go down that rabbit hole. Of the production team, the only other major name in the series is Sean Levy, or the director of classics such as Night at the Museum, Deadpool and Wolverine, and Cheaper by the Dozen. Considering he is taking a producer role similar to his capacity in Stranger Things, it's unclear how much their involvement will be. And if it's like Stranger Things, he'll probably just direct a portion of the episodes across the season. Now, making it work is probably what they're working on right now. The main question is, do they make it an adaptation of one of the games? And of course, they have several choices, even the original two that nobody talks about if you're a true Persona fan. They could naturally go down the anthology route, going season to season, telling the stories from one game to another, similar to how The Last of Us is approached. Except this would be a revolving cast. But the Persona games have always had cameos from previous party members from one game to the next, and in some of the re-releases have even included more direct nods to characters from the sequels. Although the downside of this approach is that there's only finite material that you can use and not a lot of wiggle room to change things. But if you want my opinion on this, I think the best bet is to take the lore from Persona, give us Igor, give us the Velvet Room, give us the attendants, the overarching stuff that appears in every Persona game, and create a unique story. It's thematically Persona, but without any of the characters that we already know. Now, maybe the odd cameo here and there wouldn't go amiss. A small nod about a character here and there, like the resave poster you can find in Persona 5. But it doesn't need to use any of those characters directly. Keep them in their own worlds, effectively. It also allows it to create its own identity, removed from the series' expectations, and of course oversight from Atlus and Sega on how all their characters are being portrayed, to make sure that it's in line with their vision. I'd imagine that they will still have some level of involvement, but keeping it more original allows the team behind it to have more creative freedom. Now, I'm going to say I think the best approach they could go is a more Persona 3-4 approach with different palaces, or whatever they call them, knocking around the city as part of their metaverse or otherworld nature, whatever it decides to be called in this show. I imagine that they're more likely to go for a setting like the city, just because of the ease of plot lines and various different routes they can take it round there, but they can still build in trips to more rural areas as part of episodes. Although, what I will say is due to the creative team being largely American, this could be the first Persona-related entry to take place out of Japan. Because I'd imagine that if they do go down the more original route, they would set it even further from the series and build out the lore a little more. Because surely more people are awakening to Personas outside of Japan. Will moving the location from Japan impact the overall feeling and tone? That's a whole other question that we won't be able to answer until we know a little bit more. But it didn't work so well for the Death Note film. But we have learned an awful lot more about respecting source material in the last decade. Honestly, I thought that if we ever did get another TV show, it was going to be another anime. We've had several direct anime adaptations across the years, and also a non-canon sequel series to Persona 3. So getting a live action from an American creative team was a curveball I wasn't expecting, and it could go either way. But for the moment, I want to be optimistic, because anything new in that world is good news to me, and I'm sure many other Persona fans out there, even if they are, like me, cautiously optimistic. Well, more Persona surely has to be a good thing, right? Let me know your thoughts down below. Do you think that this is a good idea? Where do you want it set? And if you enjoyed this, don't forget to like and subscribe, and check me out over on Twitch at twitch.tv/the_untitledgamer. I'm live there 4 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday. But for now, bye!